Welcome to this Pure Storage presentation on the interoperability with the Pure Storage PowerShell SDK version 1 and version 2. My name is Mike Nelson and I'm a solutions architect on the Microsoft Solutions team at Pure. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through in depth how we can accomplish having both the SDK version 1 and the SDK version 2 working in the same PowerShell session. I will also show a side-by-side type of scenario where both SDKs are operating in their own independent sessions. Let's start with some demonstrations on how this will be accomplished. For the demonstration of the interoperability with the SDK version 1 and version 2, I'm going to be using multiple versions of PowerShell, specifically PowerShell version 5.1 and version 7.0.3. I'm also going to be using multiple versions of the operating system, Microsoft Windows and Linux Ubuntu. So I do have the Windows Terminal session up here. You'll notice I do have a PowerShell 5.1 session. I have a PowerShell 7 session, and I also have my Ubuntu session all started in PowerShell. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make a connection from any of these. And the reason why I'm doing this is to show that you can create multiple connections to a single array through two different versions of PowerShell, but also two different operating systems all at the same time. Or you can create multiple connections to multiple arrays, all using different versions of PowerShells and also different operating systems. So here I'm actually have the module already installed on the Ubuntu. If I do a get module here, it will show me that 2.2.272.0 is already available for me to use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a connect to PFA2 array commandlet. And I've already got some variables defined. So if you take a look at this, it's using those variables and it's connecting back to the array. So I've just established what they call an API token connection to that array, not an OAuth token connection, but an API token. And there are multiple different ways to connect to an array as well, and we've got those outlined in the documentation on support.purestorage.com, where you can use the username and password credentials, you can use API tokens, you can use OAuth to make those connections with the SDK version 2. SDK version 1 is more limited, and also the APIs 2.0 and 2.1 are limited as well, and those are in the release notes. So we've made this connection inside of the Linux, and I can go ahead and just do a get pf array to find out, hey, I am connected, and this is the array I'm connected to. Now I could go ahead and start establishing more connections to the arrays without a problem here. If I have, literally just a few arrays, or I have 100 arrays, I can make all those connections. But I can only do that with the SDK version 2 inside of this PowerShell session. And the reason for that is because on the PowerShell Linux side, it runs 7.0.3 of PowerShell. Now SDK version 2 is compatible with that. SDK version 1 is not. So if you want to run SDK version 1, you have to run it in a 5.1 PowerShell session. Okay, so SDK2 is compatible with PowerShell versions 5.0 and above. SDK1 is still only compatible with PowerShell version 5.1 or below. That gets me to the next point, is going to be actually in PowerShell 5.1 session, we have the ability to connect to the same array using both SDKs. So I'm going to validate that my modules are actually imported here. So I've imported the SDK version 1. I'm going to import the SDK version 2. Now both are loaded. And if I do a get module here, it'll show me that, the 1.17.3.0, the 2.2.272.0. So from there, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the connection. Now with the version 1, okay, I'm going to be using the commandlet that's required, which is new PFA array, and that's going to prompt me for credentials. So I'll enter my credentials, and then I've made my connection. Okay, and I can validate that because I have not actually connected to the via the SDK too, right? So I haven't done that connection yet. So what I can do here is I can do a get PFA array attributes, which is a SDK version 1 command, and that'll bring back the information from SDK 1 saying this is the array you're connected to. So to connect to array 2, okay, which is going to be via the SDK 2, I'm going to use that variable, and that's going to make the same connection. It's going to use the same variables, but it's using the connect PFA2 array command. All right, so two distinct different commands to make the connection, and you can see I've declared two different variables, array 1 and array 2. The reason for that being is now I can direct commandlets at either variable, which is really beneficial when you're working with multiple arrays and scripts that you want to be able to use version 1 commands and version 2 commands together. So to validate that the version 2 is now connected, I'm just going to do a get PFA2 array, and you can see because of the API differences you're going to get a little bit different output in terms of looking at what the array information is. So from there I'm going to take and I'm going to create some hosts and volumes using SDK version 1, and then I'm going to delete them with SDK version 2, all in the same session, all connected to the same array. So right here this command is just going to go out and it's going to create an array in PowerShell. So it's saying that the variable host is equal to demo host 001, 002, 003. And from there I'm also going to do the same thing with volumes. I'm going to go ahead and create some dummy volumes here with those names. I just quickly cleared my screen because we're going to be putting a whole bunch of data on here now. I'm going to actually go through and create those hosts, and this is going to be done with the new PFA2 host command. I'm using an SDK2 command to do this because of its ability to pipeline, which makes this command much easier. So I'm actually taking the array and pipelining it into that command. And the hosts have been created. So I'm going to do the same thing with the volumes. Okay, I'm actually going to pipeline those into the ability to create those volumes. As you can see here, if I scroll back up, the vol names have been piped to new PFA2 volume, and I provisioned them to 200 gig. All right, moving on, I just want to validate that those hosts actually exist. So here you can see I have some test hosts, but then I also have the 3 demo hosts that I created. So I actually want to go through and I want to now create some snapshots and host groups and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to be doing that with the SDK1 commands. I'm going to go in and create a host group now, but I'm going to be using the SDK version 1 command. And as you can see here, I created demo-host01 and added it to a demo host group. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and create an actual volume connection. I've created a volume connection using SDK1 over to the host name, host001, and I'm going to create a snapshot. There we go. Created a snapshot for those two sources of volume 500, volume 501 with the suffix of example. Now I'm going to go and, just to make sure I've got all the information for the snapshot, tells me everything about it, destroyed is set to false. We'll go out and we'll do a remove. But notice what I'm doing is I'm actually using SDK version 2 commandlets now. So interoperability right there. Second thing I want you to notice is I don't have an array name after this, okay? An array parameter. That's not necessary in SDK2 any longer unless you have multiple arrays that you're connected to. But if you only have a single array you're connected to in SDK version 2, you do not need to specify that array parameter anymore. It's assumed by the SDK. So here I'm actually going to go through and say, okay, remove that snapshot for me. And what else do you have to do? Because now it's just marked as destroyed, right? You have to actually have eradicate a snapshot. And here, do you want to eradicate it? I've got the confirm on there, and I say yes, please. Now the snapshot is gone. I can go through now and remove the connection, which was the volume to host connection. And then I can actually go through and just remove the host. So I pretty much just cleaned up my environment except for the host group and some of those volumes, but you can see the ability to use all these commands together in one single session is really advantageous when working with volumes and arrays and hosts, and the large number that you have to deal with is definitely an advantage. One last thing I did want to show you is that now that I've actually done those commands, I'm going to get rid of the host group now, but I'm going to do that inside of the Ubuntu window. So I'm still talking to the same array. I still have the connection to the same array, but I'm going to go in here and say, hey, remove that host group. Well, now that host group is gone. Okay, but I've done that in a different operating system using a different version of PowerShell all at the same time. That about covers it for the demonstrations, and now I'd like to tell you about the Slack team that we have, which is everything APIs and SDKs. So if you're interested in collaborating with not only the Pure folks, but also customers and developers, you can go to that URL, codeinvite.purestorage.com, and get an invitation to join our Slack team. Also, everything API you can find at code.purestorage.com, and then all of our articles, tech notes are available at support.purestorage.com. Thank you very much for watching this video.